originally scheduled a class for today on an agnostic talks about the benefits and the beauty and the importance of church. But we're going to save that one. It's part of the Wired Word series that we've started. We're going to save that. We will have that discussion in the fall. So for adult education, we have our organ presentation today. Next Sunday, we'll be back up in the library with Isabel Soror speaking about her archaeological experiences in Jordan, and she's continuing her studies in archaeology and has done some work and some digging around in Jordan, so we'll hear from her and what's involved in that. And then we will break for the summer. So next Sunday is Pentecost, the last Sunday of our 11 a.m. worship, and then it's Memorial Day weekend, we move to 10 a.m. worship. So that's sort of our adult education schedule going forward. We welcome those who are on the live stream with us. We've got this going on YouTube today as opposed to Zoom, and I hope you all were able to find it, those who are with us on YouTube. So I'm going to open us with a word of prayer and then turn it over to Cindy and Sam. Let's begin with prayer. Good and gracious God, as we gather on this glorious Lord's Day, Mother's Day, Confirmation Sunday, Organ Presentation Day, we're so thankful for your presence in our midst. And we're thankful in the way that you draw us together as your people and as a community united in Jesus. I pray, Lord, that as we learn more about the ways you are working in this community through music, through making a joyful noise, through updating our instruments, through being faithful to your call, that we would understand afresh and anew how you make all things new. Use us in ways that are unforeseen, even now. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Well, good morning, everyone. I just want to again kind of echo Pastor Emily's welcome. Thank you for those of you who are here in person and online for attending this and talking about our digital pipe organ campaign and getting an update from our organ committee chairperson, co-chair, and myself as well. So James, if you'll go to the next slide. Today we will be covering an overview and events of this project, tied to this project, the facts, the placement of our new organ, and fundraising initiatives as well. Continuing on to the next slide and the next slide. This new organ will provide our congregation with the breadth and depth of expressive content that we have never heard in this church before. With a new organ, we are also better positioned for greater community outreach in the form of concerts, recitals, weddings, memorial services, educational events. And our hope is that it is one way we can grow our church and minister to PPC and our local community. Especially, it's a major contribution to PPC's music ministry program and our enduring gift to the music and the glorification of God. We'll go to the next slide. This is one thing I've been really, really excited about, is we're excited to announce the following proposed events for our 2024-2025 church season. We will have a dedication concert for the organ that we're currently working on inviting international award-winning organists, either Jeremy Filsell, I said that last name wrong, Monty Bennett, or Carol Williams for our organ dedication concert. Some combination of those three or any of those one. We're working on that right now. Additionally, an organ and pizza day for children, young and old, kind of a demonstration of the instrument, along with food. What could go wrong? Cue laughter, right? That's okay, all right. And then demonstration concerts. This is something that not a lot of places do anymore, but demonstrating just what an instrument like this, what an organ can do, and what an organ's function is in the role of not just the church, but also of a community or a house of worship, or a community center, or a center where people congregate together. Community Christmas concerts, I already have about 5 or 6 different music directors signed up for our next Potomac Community Christmas concert this upcoming winter. And one of the things that we have worked together that has been mentioned preliminarily is doing some type of combined piece or masterwork or some form of music together with a joint choir of many different congregations. So that is one kind of slice into this particular project as well. Educational outreach about playing the organ. I'm a teacher, so I love teaching kids about instruments, and the organ is often considered the king of instruments for a reason. It has versatility that is fantastic and wide-reaching, more so than most other instruments out there. Lenten organ recitals are also a potential opportunity that we're looking at introducing for this upcoming spring of 2025. And then the Potomac Organ Institute practices and functions. I've reached out to them. The Potomac Organ Institute is a sort of the youth wing and educational outreach of the Potomac chapter of the American Guild of Organists. And they are kind of looking for a new educational outreach and home for their educational outreach. And so I've reached out and started preliminary conversations with them as well, so that, again, this organ that we are buying isn't just merely for our purposes on Sunday, but also for the purpose of training new and younger organists to eventually replace me. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy now.
James, can you go to the next slide, please? So we thought it would be helpful to just give you a few facts about our current instrument and just sort of organs in general. So just the facts. Our organ that is up in our loft is 37 years old, and the enhanced speakers are 21 years old. The organ has surpassed the life expectancy of a digital organ of the 1987 era, and our speaker technology is supremely outdated. The instrument and the technology that we currently have, it is no longer reliable. The pistons get stuck, and Sam can tell you all the intricacies of what doesn't work on our organ, but the pistons get stuck. The sound is distorted. There is a high-pitched sound that interferes with live streaming now. The low-band RF frequencies in violation of FCC regulations. At this point, putting more money into continued repairs will no longer improve the quality or the reliability of the organ we have. Next slide. One of the things that we learned in this process of learning about organs in our community is that, and not that we need to keep up with the Joneses, but a lot of the churches in our area are doing the same thing we're doing. All the organs that they have are also outdated and not working any longer. Just to give you some examples, Darnestown Presbyterian just spent $150,000 on a new standard model Allen digital pipe organ in 2023. And Emmanuel Lutheran in Bethesda, just down the road, spent $200,000 on a new custom Viscount digital pipe organ in 2022. Practically speaking, replacing our organ is a necessary investment if we expect our current music director or any visiting organists to play the organ as part of worship or for special services like weddings, memorial services, and things like that. So the committee that was brought together in November, Chris? Is that what you said? I think we had our first meeting in January. We have been meeting. We learned all about our current organ. We learned all the basics. We learned what other churches were doing. We then started getting into different types of organs and models of organs and all this other kind of stuff. We visited multiple churches and listened to different instruments. In the end, after evaluating all of that data, the organ committee recommended to PPC that they needed a new organ, and the session approved that recommendation. Yeah. Yes, the organ committee is myself and Tom Haugen as co-chairs, Marcia Bogard, John Davies, Chris Searway, and
Ex officio members are
yes, Pastor Emily, Pastor Chris, and Sam as ex officio members. So, okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So, in the end, after doing a lot of research and looking at different types of organs, the organ committee recommended the Viscount digital organ to session. Just real quick, a digital organ is a keyboard instrument like what we have, in which the tone is generated by electronic circuits and radiated by speakers, not pipes. But the technology makes it sound like a pipe organ. So just when we refer to a digital pipe organ, that's what we're referring to. The session approved our recommendation. The contract for the organ has been signed, and we will have a customized Viscount organ within 4 months. We did consider other organ manufacturers. If you can go to the next slide, please, James. We considered Allen, which is the type of organ we have upstairs. We considered Rogers and Walker brand organs. And what we learned after doing all of that research is that their technology is less advanced, but at a comparable price point. Viscount is the top manufacturer of digital pipe organs at this point in time. They just really are superior. So Sam is going to tell you a little bit about why specifically we picked the Viscount.
Thank you, Cindy. And James, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So the first reason that we picked Viscount was specifically because they use a different technology than what other comparable organs or organ companies use. They use something called physical modeling, which is a patented technology of theirs that most similarly recreates the sound of an actual pipe. And they're able to adjust it, and you're able to adjust it from the console to the space, to the sanctuary. So it most similarly creates the sound of an original pipe organ in comparison of Allen, Rogers, and Walker, which use something called digital sampling, where they sample a sound of a pipe organ and repeat it for about 6 to 7 second increments over and over again to every time that I as an organist would press a key, right? So what that allows us to do is it allows us to adapt the instrument to our unique octagonal sanctuary. Did I say that word? Octagonal? Octagonal, stop sign shape. Unique sanctuary space. We are very, very blessed to have the sanctuary that we do, and this instrument allows us the ability to uniquely put together the tones and the tonality of the various different stops, the various different sounds of the organ for our space. And this was evident in our visits to various other churches in that the Viscount model that we saw at St. Francis was designed for a very cathedral-esque acoustic. And the Viscount model that we saw at Emmanuel Lutheran was more similar to what our sanctuary space is like. And they were vastly different instruments in terms of their sound, the sound that they produced, the reverb, all of those things. Which was really, really interesting to see that variation, because in the 1980s, when this organ was installed, the instrument that you got was kind of the standard thing. The technology wasn't able to be uniquely adapted as well as it is today, and as well as Viscount is able to do it. What's really unique about this particular organ as well is that it does allow for upgradable software and hardware throughout. In that, for example, their speakers are patented. Viscount speakers are patented as well, but if it's set up more like a sound system than it is necessarily an organ, if that makes sense. There's amplifiers that are on the consumer market, so if something does go wrong, theoretically, we could replace those amplifiers on our own without contacting an organ company if need be. Viscount also offers the highest quality speakers on the market, and this is maybe a state secret, so don't share it, even though we're putting it on YouTube. The speakers that Viscount uses are contracted through one of the 3 manufacturers trusted for IMAX theaters. So in terms of the speaker quality, we're getting the top of the top. Additionally, the adjustable bench is something that right now we do not have. And so for an example, every time that Rob Keane plays, he will sub in for me when I can't make a wedding or a funeral. He has to put our bench up on hymnals to be able to sit right now up in the balcony. And you can't see that, right, because there's a railing, but it's just one of those things where having an adjustable bench is nice. And then having the console on a movable platform allows us to move the organ around for various events. So when we do the dedication concert, having the organ out and featured in a more prominent position, being able to move the instrument itself around so that we can do various different events and have maximal flexibility in our space is important and something that we as the organ committee recognized. James, let's move to the next slide, please. So here are the specific specifications. We are purchasing a Viscount Vero, which is the 2024 model of a 370 MDK, which is manual draw knobs, meaning that when I pull out a stop, it's not going to light up. It's actually meant to most similarly be like an organ. Sometimes a lot of digital organ companies, the stops will light up when you pull them out. These are, again, our whole point was to make this console and this organ fit within the aesthetic of our sanctuary. It's a deluxe with an antiphonal division that I, along with the organ committee, will be working with the national tonal director for Viscount for that, which is really unique. It will be 3 manuals, which is 3 keyboards. It will have 70 plus stops. Currently, our organ right now has 41. Again, the movable draw knobs. It will be on a movable platform, and it will have colonial and 2-tone finishing with an adjustable bench. All told, that comes to a total of $187,425. James, if we'll go to the next slide, that'll provide, this is a rendering of what the console will look like. And again, the colors don't necessarily match perfectly in this image to our sanctuary, but we're working on getting samples to Viscount actually a little bit later today, which is exciting. Our goal is to have the white that you see up there match the ends of our pews, so that the almond color of the ends of our pews, and then all of the darker wood tones will match the pew wood tones that you see in our sanctuary right now. Awesome. And I will transfer back to Cindy.
James, can you go to the next slide, please? So, placement within our sanctuary. Location, 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 right? As you all know, our current organ resides in our loft, and it's just not an ideal place for our organ any longer. The video streaming equipment now takes up half of the portion of the loft. The choir for many years now has been singing in the front of the sanctuary. We used to sing up in that corner over there. And it's really unrealistic to have a music director running up and down the stairs as Sam does, as Tom used to do, going up and down when they're jumping from piano to organ to piano to directing the choir. It's just not realistic. The organ is now going to reside in the left front of the sanctuary, so that the organist is part of the worship service. The choirs can easily work with the organist and the music director, and so the loft space can be used for the streaming technology and our handbell choir. And Sam is going to tell you a little bit about how we're fitting the organ over there.
Thank you, James. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. The organ committee is working with the property committee to create space in the front of the sanctuary that will accommodate this new organ. The choir and the piano all three of them. And at the same time, we are doing this with the idea that we want to preserve the colonial aesthetic and architecture that we have in our sanctuary. Changes likely to our sanctuary it will include the removal of the pews that the choir already uses, new chairs for the choir, updates to the flooring and lighting, in addition to the necessary electrical upgrades for this new organ. This organ upgrade and sanctuary modification will enhance our worship experience and all who enter our sanctuary, and for those who worship online. And then I will turn it over to Cindy to talk about fundraising.
So as you saw on the first slide that Sam had presented where he talked about the Viscount organ, the Viscount is, for the model that we've selected with all of the specifications, the total for that organ is $187,425. What does that price include? That price includes the actual organ, the instrument. It includes the installation of the organ console. They will come in, they will make sure everything is fit. They will tone, that's not the right word. Tonal, yes. They will make sure it is tonally appropriate for our sanctuary. It includes the audio system, the speakers, installation of all of those pieces. It will include training for the organist. It is a new organ. Not all organs are the same. There is going to be some training involved for Sam to learn all the ins and outs of this new instrument. It comes with a 10-year warranty. So that is one piece of what we are hoping to fundraise. Can you go to the next slide, please, James? Thanks. We're also going to need to raise some additional funds for some of the pieces that go into supporting the new organ and getting it into place. Making sure we have all the correct electrical wiring upgrades for the dedicated organ circuit, in removing a few of those pews, making sure that the flooring is modified so that it all blends nicely with what we currently have, new chairs for the choir, and really a lot of the things that we're proposing, it's really to make this space as flexible as possible. Just for example, we did talk about keeping pews there and maybe flipping them or moving them. The reality is we want to be able to have flexibility, bringing in larger groups and bringing in, whether it's the pageant or a production with children or whatever it may be, we want to make sure that what we are installing and what we are putting in place is as flexible as possible so that we can do as many things as we want to do. So. Chairs for the choir. We've discussed putting in a possible pew rail that's, movable so that, there's a little bit of a barrier space, whatever, if you want for, sectioning off the choir. Lighting upgrades. It is very dark over here, and whenever the choir gets up to sing, every single one of the choir members will tell you we struggle to see what is on the page. It is just very dark in this section of the sanctuary, so we've talked about a couple possible lighting upgrades to make that space, again, more usable for everyone. Possible modular platforms, again, something we're thinking about. These are all in the works. So we have not settled on anything. We are still working with property. We are still hashing out, getting estimates. We're trying to figure out things. But we do know that there will be some additional funds needed to support some of these modifications that we need to make and upgrades that we need to make. Next slide, please. So to date, we have already raised $78,000 with some very generous donors, and we are on our way. So we're really hoping that if people in the congregation feel moved to contribute to this project, they will. Next slide, please, James. We're hoping that people might feel moved to donate to the glory of God and for the love of music and for all the great things that we can do as a congregation to support music ministry at PPC and within our larger community, and consider making a donation in memory or in honor of a loved one. Did you want to open it up for questions at this point? I can't remember what else we were going to talk about.
You had a quote, a Bible quote.
Oh, I had a quote.
There you go.
Make music to praise God. Play music for him, from Psalm 47, verse 6. At this point, we would love to open it up for questions. So raise your hand. Yes, Karen.
So there will be speakers, I guess. I know, Sam, you talked about this in worship committee.
Yeah.
Will the speakers be at the back? Will they be hidden? Where will the speakers?
So what's really cool about Viscount, because they have patented speaker technology, the speakers are about this big.
Amazing.
So currently, if you look back in our railing right there, we have 3 kind of panels dead center. Behind each one of those is a large speaker cabinet. This is part of the reason we went with Viscount. The speaker technology is so much more advanced because we're able to still maintain our aesthetic. And we're actually looking at putting in about 24 of those small speaker cabinets, and they're all going to be hidden back here. So they're going to be placed behind the columns. Each one of the 4 columns, there will be speakers behind there. And then there's likely to be speakers color matched up and around our crown molding trim. And then there's also going to be 2 subwoofers placed in the sanctuary. One likely where our current subwoofer is for the organ, which is up in the balcony in the corner. And then the potential of also having one back here, behind here as well. This sanctuary was originally designed for a pipe organ to be placed here. We have these spaces here for pedal tower pipes, the really tall, big pipes in a pipe organ. And if you look at the original blueprints of our sanctuary, it actually lists that as the organ chamber, which is kind of unique. But it just never came to fruition. And so by going with Viscount and using their technology and having it installed this way, we can maintain the aesthetic and also make sure we have a quality instrument for future generations. Yeah.
And we did learn during this process, or I learned during this process, Sam already knew that, the actual pipe organs are significantly more expensive than
Right.
a digital pipe organ.
Right.
So
Just to give a comparison,
significantly more.
the last organ committee that PPC had was looking at an instrument that roughly would cost about, adjusted for inflation, about $400,000 today. And that was just for the instrument itself to be constructed. There's still installation fees, there's still various different things. There were sanctuary modifications that would have needed to happen to make that instrument happen. And one of our goals, and especially my goal as the director of music, was to make sure that we maintain our strong financial standing as a congregation, because there are congregations that buy new organs and they'll install an original pipe organ and it'll be upwards of $2 million, a $2 million project. And that's just not necessarily feasible, thinking long-term and health for our congregation. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, the modifications, the $100,000 for modifications in the sanctuary. Could you say a little bit more how the property committee, I know that that's still in the works a little bit, but I just sort of have 2 questions. One is, how is the process? They're gonna have a design architect or a small design contract to kind of lay things out and so on, and then the, if you will, the build phase, get some builder to come in and actually make the changes. That's one question. And the other question is then, sort of connected with that, it seems like the 100K is right now kind of a rough order of magnitude estimate. Is there a range on that number that you have at this point? Because it just seems like that there could be, you haven't really gotten the design guy to lay it out. They probably don't have quotes, although I'm sure they'll go through the process of getting quotes from them, both for the design part as well as for the construction part. And so that's sort of my questions around that
Yeah.
area.
Well, right now I can say we've talked about doing this in phases. We've talked about doing it all at once. The construction piece is actually minimal in terms of just removing the pews, modifying the flooring. Modular platforms are things we can do down the road if we find that they're going to be useful after the organ is here. We've started getting estimates, chairs, for example. We started with metal chairs. They're not really the aesthetic we're looking for. To get some nice wood chairs that are the same wood tone with a coordinating fabric, you're talking about $150 a chair. We need about, what did we say, 15 of them? 15 of those. So yeah, we're not at $100,000. We think for the dedicated circuit, we think we actually have a dedicated circuit already, but it's just meeting with an electrical, electrician, thank you, that was the word, I'm like electrical engineer, no, electrician, to make sure that the wiring is current, up to date, everything is good for them to just plug the new organ in. So that $100,000, we really don't, in all fairness, we don't really know the full, we're still working through that piece of the puzzle.
It just seems to me, just as a reference, probably a bit on the high side.
Yeah.
When you go out and actually do this, I think you'll find, even including, I presume they're probably gonna get some sort of doesn't need a full-blown architect kind of thing, but some sort of a design guy. If it's not the construction guy, it might be different people, I'm thinking, that would just kind of lay it out, make some drawings, et cetera, so that you could do this. I mean, it's not a horrendous job.
Right.
But
Well, and that's why we,
it just strikes me that the 100K is,
Yeah.
You're protecting yourself to say, most likely I would suspect it would be less than that.
we suspect it'll be less than that too. That's why we also
Yes.
broke up the 187, because we know that cost. We know exactly what it's gonna
Right.
cost us to get the Viscount. And then the other piece is, we're still in the process of calling vendors and getting all of those pieces worked out, so, yeah.
We have a great sounding choir. I'm just curious, Sam, do you have any estimate? If our lighting is better and our choir can see the pages of music, how much better will they sound?
I would maybe ask the choir members, because I don't want to get in trouble.
So my serious question
Yeah.
is, I'm curious, the antiphonal device or whatever that is
Division.
coming with our model, can you explain what that is? That sounds interesting.
The antiphonal device, what that is, so an organ typically has three divisions. Our organ will actually have four. It will have a what's known as a great manual, which is your standard manual. It'll have a swell manual, which is under expression, so that's another keyboard. And then it'll have a choir manual as well. And the choir manual and swell manual kind of work together, and there will be an antiphonal division of specialized stops, specialized sounds that I and the tonal director and the organ committee will get to select, which is kind of cool. And those are everything from like herald trumpets, for example, to a particular type of flute sound, to a particular, it's meant to be a completely different kind of thing. Bagpipes, percussion, all kinds of different things that we want, which is really cool. And the speakers for that antiphonal division will be placed where our current renewed speakers were placed, up above the balcony doors there. So we'll have the vast majority of the organ sounds will come from here, special sounds coming from the rear, essentially was the design.
When you think of antiphony, you think of a
Back and forth, kind of, yeah. Yep.
So
And Del
no
has a
mode
question.
synthesizer mode, or,
No synthesizer mode? Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, potentially. So what's really unique is like our organ right now has 41 stops, and I have about 30 different cards for different sounds that I can like plug in and play. This organ is programmable with up to 15,000 different sounds. So we can go crazy if we want. If you want a synthesizer mode, Rob, I will give you a synthesizer.
Del has a question?
Yeah, Del.
Actually, several. First of all, my YouTube contact says, please repeat the questions.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
sorry, thank you.
My apologies. That's a good point.
My unserious question is, do you get the flashing neon lights?
See, we talked about that. We actually talked about pushing out this back wall, and there'd be a raisable platform, and then Pastor Emily, Chris, and I would enter that way on Sunday mornings. But the organ committee turned that down.
And my serious question is,
Yes, Del.
do they offer an extended warranty at time of purchase?
Del asked, do they offer an extended warranty at the time of purchase? And we did explore that, and Sam's gonna remember what they
Yes.
told us.
They told us there is an extended warranty for 5 years that was on the table, and we as an organ committee decided not to go with that because it would have cost us an extra $6,000, and theoretically the maintenance for this within the first 15 years will not cost nearly that amount, which is why we decided not to pay for the extended warranty. Yeah.
Chris, did you have a question?
I just wanted to amplify what, to your question about, I actually contacted the architects that we used in the last organ committee, and as I described the project, they wouldn't take it because it's really too small. To your point, most of it's going to be removal and rearrangement of what we have. The significant factor would be is if we decide to extend the chancel physically by adding to it, not with the platforms you're talking about. Construction, we'd have to add a 8 foot by 5 foot ramp with rail to accommodate the ADA.
Yeah.
Stuart, did you have a question?
Yeah, how does the organ communicate with the speakers? Is it wired or wireless?
It is.
Hold on one second. Stuart was asking,
yeah.
how does the organ communicate with the speakers? Is it wires or wireless?
It is wired by an Ethernet cable, Cat6 Ethernet cable. That's the only cable.
John?
Yes, John.
I have a deep question. You referred to the RF interference in the low frequency
Yeah.
From that organ, which I'm not sure where it comes from, but have we evaluated what RF comes out of the new one compared to the existing sound system, or the way that we use that to communicate to the
Right. So
Will you repeat that
John was
question?
asking about the RF band emanating from our current organ and whether that will exist in the new organ or in our current PA system. It doesn't exist in our current PA system, and it won't exist in the new organ. That's kind of a thing, it's emblematic from its era, specifically, of how sounds were produced and used in particular speakers and amplifiers from the 1980s, 1990s, pre that regulation being changed. So it was one thing. I was looking through the manual of our current organ, and it was like the very, very last thing on the manual was this console does send out a low band RF frequency. Yep. The new ones are designed not to do that at all.
So maybe we're grandfathered with that little bit.
Yeah, we are probably grandfathered in, I would imagine, yeah.
So to be more specific, is there any RF coming out of the new?
No RF coming out of any new organ being built in the 21st century. Yeah.
Diane?
I was just watching online, but I wanted to come down to ask a question. I think you've done a wonderful job of convincing us that we need this organ, and your selection, it sounds glorious. I'm totally won over.
Thank you.
But I'm not won over by the idea of relocating it down here. And I wonder if the wrong issue is driving the decision. I personally liked it when the music came from up above and swelled over the congregation. And I dislike the performance aspect of having the choir down here facing us where we watch the individual members and the organist and we clap now. I don't like that. And I'm wondering if the wrong issue is driving the decision. Why couldn't we relocate the digital streaming equipment to the rear of the sanctuary? We could build a wonderful sort of projection booth back here. We could even enclose it. And that would be a lot less expensive than changing the whole sanctuary. So I wanted to throw that out.
Do you want to take that one?
So Diane,
We need to repeat the
it's a
question.
lot to repeat. Diane, first of all, complimented the organ committee on the selection of the organ and our needing a new organ and all of that. She was raising the question of modifying the sanctuary to place the organ up here. She says she liked it when the sound came from above and doesn't like the performance aspect of having the choir down here and people clapping for musical offerings and things like that. And would it make better sense to move the streaming equipment somewhere else and put the choir and the organ back up there?
Speak about the vision for music.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
speak to that. So to answer your question, Diane, one of the reasons I was hired, and one of the things actually listed in my job description, was to create kind of a new vision for what a music ministry looks like here at PPC. And so when we're talking about, oh, we're going to put the choir down in front, the idea is that the choir already, they are taking on a leadership role by volunteering their time and their musical efforts and gifts on a weekly basis during rehearsal to do X, Y, and Z, right? I specifically have a vision where they continue that leadership. They're facing us as a congregation and being our leaders in song, so that it's decentralized from just the organist is leading us, or just the choir, that we and the choir is becoming more and meshing more into the congregation a little bit more, but also leading us in singing every part of the worship service, not just their anthem. That at least is part of my vision, is that we have a dedicated space for our choral musicians, and also if that ever changes, the way that we're modifying the sanctuary is a minimal modification to allow for future flexibility, if that ever changes, right? I hope that answers at least one part of that question. As for the clapping in the sanctuary and clapping for the choir, everyone has a different opinion on that, in terms of various different things, and my goal is to be accommodating to everyone and make sure that we have everyone feels comfortable in showing their praise to God in different ways. That can be by just meditating on the music that is being presented. It can be by clapping, and it can be in many different ways, joining in song like we do in worship every Sunday. Yeah. Yeah, follow up, Bob.
But I've had also worship experiences in a number of other churches, not the least of which the church I grew up in Massachusetts. And in all the other churches, the choir has generally been either up front behind the pulpit area in a fairly larger church, or maybe a bit to the side or what have you. To be honest with you, at least from my limited experience in other churches, very few have the choir behind, if you will, that you can't see. The other question that might help with both the clapping and also to some extent, the points that Diane brought up, right now, the choir faces the front of the church, okay? So it just looks like, I don't even know they're a choir. If I'm a stranger coming in here, they're probably just a lot of people that like to sit on that side of the church. And then when the choir sings in the anthems and what have you, they come up front. And I guess this is a bit of a question as well. With this new seating arrangement, and you probably maybe move these microphones around, is there a need now for the choir to get up and parade up on the front, sit on the front, or they will sing from their position? And if the answer is they're going to sing from their current position, facing the congregation, it's less of, okay, we're going to have a performance on the stage, as opposed to an integration, as you mentioned, within the church worship service, where they're there, they're seeing us, they're singing from that location. And that's what I have viewed mostly in other churches where the choir is in front. There is a seat, they stand up when they sing, but they don't go to some other location and then return to that location. And I think that might help to the point that you're raising, Diane, as far as how that would operate. I don't know, that's just a thought.
Emily, do you want to?
I just want to repeat what Bob said.
Yes, so Bob was saying that in his experience with other churches, he has found that the choir is generally in the front of the congregation, not in the back. But he did say that he asked the question, by making the modifications and putting the choir in chairs over there, would they instead just stand up at their seats and sing as part of worship, as opposed to coming up on the stage and feeling like it's more of a performance? That is correct. The plan would be the choir would, like in other churches, stand up. They're already facing the congregation. Stand up, sing, sit back down. Not do this whole parading thing that we have to do every week.
To clarify, that one question was also a matter of expense. That it's going to cost a lot to redo the sanctuary, whereas relocating the streaming equipment would not be as expensive.
To that point, I think Chris Searway has been standing and might be able to answer that point, Diane. Yeah, I can.
The question.
Amplify what Bob was saying, Emily was saying. We discussed the issue in the committee, and one of the pieces of worship is music. With the choir up here, up in the balcony, they're kind of separated from the worship service. Bringing them down front, having them in. They're separated from the worship. And actually, you speak to the choir members, anytime anything was happening during the service, they would all gather up on the rail to look down into the sanctuary to see what was going on. Okay. Music is, well, I heard about it when I was on the committee in 2013. We want to make music, it's one of the pieces of worship. There's what, three pieces of worship? Joyous noise, the proclamation, liturgy. Now we have the joyous noise as part of the worship service actively. That was the thought behind it.
Yeah, Eric, really quick. Yeah.
My hometown church put a pet organ in the early 80s, and Zach Singer still making comments of the organ. Did you want to say what the service life was? Is it like, did they say it's going to be upgradable? Will we get another 40 years out of this one?
Yeah, so the specific question Eric was just asking was, what's the sort of lifespan of this particular instrument we're buying? Right now, because these instruments are as new as they are, they generally don't have a particular tested lifespan because they are technically a different form of digital pipe organ. But with the upgradable possibilities that come with, we're using consumer market parts and different things like that, Viscount has estimated that it could potentially be 30 to 50 years around that particular lifespan. So what's nice right now, what's not so nice right now is that our current instrument, for example, if we were to just replace the speakers, say, we would have to go with proprietary speakers from Allen to work with their technology to do X, Y, and Z. What's nice about this instrument we're buying is that the console is primarily designed by Viscount. The speakers are obviously patented, but theoretically the speakers or amplifiers could be replaced 20, 30 years down the line if need be, that kind of thing.
Bob.
Well, Bob, another question.
Are you thinking about de-installing the current organ when you're done, so it will make more space for bell wire or other things, or maybe even some seating in the future if it grows big?
Yeah, Bob asked about, okay, this is great, this is happening. What about uninstalling the organ we currently have? That is part of the contract that Viscount has with us, is they are going to help us uninstall the organ. And so that's, what's nice though is that even if the new one is being installed, we can still use our old one until the new one is ready to go, which is really, really nice. Sometimes that doesn't happen that way. But yeah, I hope that answers that question, Bob.
Diane.
Can we donate it to someone to,
Yeah. So,
is that possible?
donate our old organ. I don't think anyone wants it. It does not work. I mean, Sam does amazing things with it every week. It's amazing what he does, but it's not. I don't think it's something that anyone wants.
To speak to that, like the only reason that I'm able to make it sound the way it sounds is because of the training I've had and the teachers I've had. And my knowledge of spending hours on that instrument learning what not to use.
You know, it's interesting when we were interviewing for music directors. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's interesting when we were interviewing music directors. Every single candidate who came in and played on our organ spoke about how it's one of the worst instruments they had ever played on. And we had one candidate who essentially withdrew her application because she said it was an insult that we were asking anyone to play on this organ. And she said it really doesn't reflect that you do care about your music ministry program, that you're asking any musician to play on this instrument. It's old. It does not work really anymore. It's an overdue investment of our congregation. So anyway, just a little anecdote.
other questions? John? That's a statement. John made a statement. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, John.
Emily, do you want to take it?
All right, so you have heard that the organ committee has done an enormous amount of research and work and had a lot of prayer time thinking through not only the instrument that would be best for this congregation, but also placement. And the session has also thought long and hard about this and taken into consideration, serious consideration, the organ committee's recommendations. And one thing that in the February session retreat that came up and emerged, which we haven't done a great job of unfolding, is that this year we want to highlight music ministry and have this be a year of celebrating and putting forward the gift of music ministry. And so we'll have a summer of mission and music, and to that end we have a camp that we're going to host in August for youth and children, a music and arts camp called Divine Harmony, sort of in keeping with this idea of highlighting music. The beginning of that music highlighting was the community Christmas concert in December. We'll do another one of those, and the thinking is maybe having the community Christmas concert the afternoon of the Williamsburg breakfast, having it be sort of a communal event where we can sort of be celebrating music. So there's a lot of very exciting possibilities and opportunities for ways to engage the community musically. This congregation is committed to organ music. That was a question that the session had for the organ committee. Do we want an organ as a congregation? Is that an instrument that we need going forward? So that also was a discussion among the organ committee. Do we need an organ? Do we want an organ? I mean, we know we have to get a new one. Maybe we go with other kinds of instrumentation in the sanctuary. And the organ committee did end up saying, yes, we do want an organ, and this is the direction we're going in. Is that a hand that's raised? Another affirmation coming from John Soul.
I would point out that the idea of music ministry is part of the growth initiative. We're thinking that the more we reach out to the youth in the community through music, that supports the efforts that we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So John was highlighting and underscoring that the music ministry is an arm of a branch of the growth initiative as we reach out to the community, as we share with the community, invite the community in, reach out to the community in ways of saying this is a place where music is taken seriously, where we want to engage with you in making music, making a joyful noise to the Lord. And Sam and Cindy went through some of those ways that we can reach out to the community, maybe that we can use to grow deeper in our relationship with God and grow deeper in our reach in the community in ways that help people to know that we're here and that we care for all with faith, hope, and love. So a big thank you to Cindy and Sam for this morning, for your presentation, for all the work that's been done. We do pray that you will feel moved to give to the glory of God, give to support this beautiful instrument, give maybe in celebration of or in memory of a loved one. And we haven't exactly figured out how we would make that known, but we can have a plaque somewhere listed if that's something that would be meaningful, to list the name of the person that you're giving in memory of or in celebration of. So we're still sort of thinking through how best we want to do that, but we pray that this is something that you are able to catch the energy and the enthusiasm that the organ committee is feeling about this new instrument and the possible ways that we can reach beyond our walls to share what God is doing in this place through the gift of music. All right, so with all of that, I think we're done here, unless there's any other questions. It looks like our confirmation class is coming on in to begin, so we're going to transition now to worship.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Is it I'm so excited about this. Is it possible to have a big concert or something after Sam gets used to the organ?
Absolutely.
Have a celebration?
Absolutely. That's part of the vision. And also, a huge celebration that we have this, maybe bring in a professional organist or, have a concert, have another idea was a fundraiser, a silent auction, that kind of thing, yeah. All right, so thank you online. There's going to be a different link for worship as we move from, there it is. If you're continuing, switch over to that live stream now. Yeah, thank you.
Should be good. You don't have to be like right on it because it's a new and better mic, so no worries there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.